Hey, so today let's talk a little bit about kombucha. I have been doing continuous brew kombucha for 5 years now. 5. And it hasn't been a steady thing. It hasn't been a consistent routine for me, but I have kept my same SCOBY going for 5 years across 3 different states. It has traveled across Canada twice, and I would say that I have been somewhat successful with my own continuous brew kombucha. My foray into whole foods and proper nutrition and those kinds of things started when I was pregnant with Molly, and it started with things like oil pulling. And then as time passed, I learned about Weston A. Price, sprouting grains, sourdoughing, and then also fermenting. And the idea of fermentation was super interesting to me, but I couldn't quite fathom doing it myself and being good at it or effective at it or even safe at it. So I became friends with some moms on Facebook, and one of these moms was into continuous brew kombucha. She so willingly sent us some of her extra SCOBYs because, you know, when you have kombucha and a continuous brew kombucha at that, you're gonna have a gazillion SCOBYs. Sorry, I'm pushing Lauren. You're gonna have a gazillion SCOBYs to deal with, and one thing about kombucha is you share it. And so I had her mail me a SCOBY from Washington State. We were living in Utah at the time, and I started my continuous brew kombucha. I do it my own way. I want to jump into the kitchen and show you what I do. With any kombucha, you start out with brewing some tea bags. I do this by using my Keurig and just brewing hot water over top of 4 family-sized tea bags. You can use loose leaf tea, you can use 8 regular-sized tea bags. It's really up to you what you like to do. I'm not sure what the equivalent measure of loose leaf tea would be, but I'm sure there's somebody online who has figured that out. I typically like to brew my tea in about 16 ounces of water, and I let it go for at least 15 minutes to get a very strong tea brew. While that tea is brewing, I'm going to get my continuous brew jar sorted out and set up. This is what my kombucha looks like after having sat still for the past month? It's basically turned into a SCOBY hotel, which is just a place where you store extra SCOBYs, which are these little flat guys. And I only want one SCOBY in mine to make sure that it fully ferments properly and to make sure that there is plenty of sugar to go around for each of those little microbes in there. And let's remove some SCOBY. Here is my continuous brew jar. I'm taking off the cloth cover, and there's the SCOBY. The top SCOBY is the one I'm actually going to get rid of, and I'm going to hang on to that bigger SCOBY that's underneath that you see right there. I don't have anyone to give a SCOBY to right now, so I'm just going to let that top SCOBY go. And I like to make sure to keep my jar covered at all times. You just never know when a random fruit fly will fly into your jar. Here's my tea concentrate, and I'm squeezing out my tea bags. And like a dummy, I'm doing it the way that I did for years and years before I got a lemon squeezer. Jared bought me a lemon squeezer a couple of weeks back, and it occurred to me that it was the perfect tool to go through and squeeze out my tea bags. So, you know, why not wait till the very end? Now I'm adding in 1 cup of sugar. This is some organic cane sugar. You can use something like coconut sugar, white sugar, whatever kind of sugar you like, but make sure that it is an actual sugar, and make sure that it's not honey or something like that, because anything that's got an
microbial, antibacterial property to it can damage your SCOBY. I like to mix my sugar in really, really well. This tea is still pretty warm, so it dissolves the sugar nicely. But I don't want to pour hot tea or even really warm tea on top of my SCOBY and the current kombucha mixture in my jar. So I filled up the rest of my Pyrex with cold water to not scald anything. And then I'm going to go through and fill the rest of the jar all the way up with water to about the shoulder.
The only thing left to do now is to wait a few days for this to convert the sugars into kombucha probiotic rich deliciousness. I will actually wait 5 to 7 days before taste testing this, and if I even detect the hint of sweetness, I'll let it continue brewing a little bit longer. And after that, we will just drink it straight from the jar, like just pour off as much as we want at a time. Molly and I are the only ones who genuinely love kombucha, so we're really the only ones in the house that drink it. And between the two of us, we'll try not to go over a cup to a cup and a half of kombucha consumption per day when we are actively drinking it. And that's because the probiotics can be strong and you don't want to tear your guts out. So we'll let this brew. We'll probably go through and I'll have Molly taste it first. She likes it a little bit sweeter. I like it as unsweet as possible, so that is again why I let it brew for as long as possible. In the winter time, we don't drink as much kombucha because mainly it takes almost 3 weeks in our cold kitchen to fully ferment. And I could pull some off and do a second ferment with it, using stuff like blueberries or peaches or what have you, but I don't generally do that because it's just one extra step, and some days I don't have time for that. That's how I do my continuous brew kombucha. It's the way I've done it for the past 5 years. My SCOBYs have survived doing all of this. They've survived driving across Canada, being cooped up for over a week at each, Trans-Canada crossing. And we've never gotten sick from it, so I'm assuming that we're doing something right. And now this little baby wants the kombucha. There are many other ways to do this. Wordy over at Traditional Food Cooking School, she is probably one of my go-to places for all things fermentation. Also, what is her name? I think it's Donna something. I will try to link another website. I think it's not Cultures for Health. What is her name? She does a lot of stuff with fermenting and things like that. Gosh, what is her name? No, that's not it. Anyway, there will be several links in the description box that will show other people's methods of doing continuous brew kombucha. That's all I got right now. And this is getting really long, so I'm gonna call it quits right here. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope that I will see you in the next video. Bye. Can you say bye? Say bye-bye. You want kombucha?